welcome back to Fitness, the Final Call Out. This is episode 4. This is a special episode. We weren't originally going to cover NPC shows. We were only going to cover the IFBB Pro season. However, we decided that we wanted to at least cover the national shows for the NPC. So this episode 4 is going to cover the last 2 national shows that just happened, and that is the NPC Junior Nationals and NPC Universe. I am your host, Andrea Glass. I am a 3-time IFBB fitness champ, and I am 12 weeks out from the 2025 Mr. Olympia. This is going to be a solo episode. It's just me today. So you'll have Allison back on the next episode. So just gonna get right into it. So we're gonna cover the last 2 shows because although yes, obviously we can't cover every NPC show, but at least the national shows, someone's gonna become a pro. And so I know all of these people are at least chasing a pro card. So I do think it's important to cover these up and coming athletes because at least one of the people in this current episode is now going to be competing as a pro, but all of them again are chasing that pro card. So we think the feedback is still valuable. So let's start with NPC Junior Nationals. There were 2 competitors in this one. So we're going to do, I'm going to do like the same thing that we did on our last episode, which is just go backwards up the ranks. So the second place competitor was Megan Cassidy. She had great shoulders, and I am going to put her picture up on the screen, but I'm going to be looking at it right in front of me. She had great shoulders. But she in general just needed to be in condition. She got second place in the prejudging and in the finals round. So when it comes to the physique, she came out, she looked pretty conditioned on the live stream, which is what I was watching, obviously. But when I look at the stage shots, I mean, there's just like a pretty clear difference in conditioning between her and Elaine. So I would just say for her main thing, she doesn't have like a naturally narrow waist, big wide V taper. So in general, as far as building, I would say just try to create that illusion, building up a bigger back, wider lats, bigger shoulders, a little bit bigger legs. But in general, I think the thing that she can do the fastest is come in in better condition. Would love to see just more lines in general, more separation between the shoulder and the bicep, a stronger shoulder cap and things like that. For her routine, I just think this routine for me felt like there was a lot of time that could have been used to show off more athleticism or just do more skills. I feel like there was a lot of time spent dancing in this routine, which I do think, especially she did like a Cotton Eye Joe, like country type theme. I do think that in heavily themed routines like that, there is more of a place for dance than in certain other routines. However, it felt like there was a lot of dancing. Like it almost felt like the dancing was like, okay, we don't really have anything else to do here. Or maybe it was a skill that got taken out. It felt like a long time, a lot of dancing. And then I think she took off her jacket, and it was like, I think that I timed it when I watched it, and it was like 15 seconds of dance choreography. And then she walked to the corner and did a leap, but the leap kind of felt a little bit of an afterthought, like similar to what we've been talking about, like with Sammy, where we were like, hey, we want this other choreography to feel intentional. The leap just kind of felt like, okay, well, I don't just want to walk to this back corner, so I'm going to do a skill. But it wasn't big. It wasn't dramatic. It was just kind of like, and then the jacket taking off was like a little bit clunky, and then threw the jacket off and then danced some more. And I was like, okay. I do think in general, there were definitely pockets of good skills where I'm like, okay, yes, I see potential here. Yes, I see potential here. I just think that when it comes to getting on a national stage and attempting to go pro, I definitely think that there are some wrinkles that need to be ironed out. Some of those gaps I think need to be filled in. So I forgot to mention that her straddle hold was not executed, and I don't mean that she missed having it in the choreography. I mean, when she went to do it, her legs never came up, so she technically never did one. A little bit tighter. And of course, you guys, like I said, obviously I know that these are amateurs. However, I'm also giving feedback based on the fact that these people come to this show hoping to be pros when they leave this show, right? So it might seem or feel like a lot of criticism, or feedback or whatever. But again, I'm also viewing this as if if this person wants to turn pro, these are the things that I think that could help them. So anyway, I thought it was a cute routine. I personally kind of like theme routines. The country theme is like not my personal vibe, but I felt like I think that she pulled it off well. I think she had I think it was a cute theme for her. I didn't think it felt disjoint. I didn't think it felt weird or anything. How we had mentioned, we didn't really feel like Amy's theme matched her. I felt like this theme, and I don't know Megan, so maybe it doesn't match her at all, but I felt like it matched her energy. But yeah, it just felt like a lot of gaps of choreography that I feel like could have been used a little bit more strategically. And then just a couple execution skill, and then just a couple areas of, there was like a round off rebound, like a round off rebound into a thing on the ground, and the rebound just didn't get a lot of air. So I would say, again, trying to fill in some of those dance choreography gaps with skills. And then just some of the power skills. Like, I feel like her holds were pretty good, but I think more of the power skills need to be just a little bit more powerful. And then moving on to Elaine Tai, who won this show, but did not end up turning pro at this show because there were only 2 competitors. And she submitted a petition, but did not got denied the petition. Okay, so Elaine, prejudging, her shape looks pretty good. I know that, Elaine and I are friends, so we have talked just about, we talk about our own physiques and routines and things a lot. And so Elaine and I have already talked about, like, Elaine does not have this like crazy, cartoonish physique. However, she does have a small waist. I think more for Elaine, it's just like she doesn't necessarily have a lot of back width. However, her shoulders are round, her legs came in. I feel like it was pretty clear that she won this prejudging round. I will say I saw Elaine compete at Adela Garcia when I competed. It was just like 2 weeks ahead of Junior Nats, I think. So I happen to know that this was not the best that she has looked this season. But conditioning wise, this is still the best that she has put on stage at a national level. Elaine has been doing a national show after national show after national show after national show. So she is one of the amateur competitors that I am very familiar with. So anyway, all that to say is I think in general, when it comes to pro, now spoiler alert, Elaine did turn pro at the next show. So I'm not going to talk about her as if she wants to turn pro, like she did turn pro at the next show. So I will just say, to be more competitive as a pro, again, more conditioning. It's for 9 times out of 10. For most of us, more conditioning is always going to be one of the things. But I would just say for her, just again, building out the width in the back so that that hourglass is accentuated a little bit more. And then I think also now that she is a pro, just fine tuning the posing as well. I think in fitness a lot, especially amateurs, I think we neglect posing. And when I say posing, I mean posing with a professional. I did not pose with a professional until my first Olympia. I did my entire career without a posing coach. My entire first rookie season without a posing coach, and I did not get a posing coach until I was in Olympia prep. And I think even a lot of pros, same thing, like I said, for myself, but I think even a lot of people that compete at the Olympia or are chasing Olympia qualification don't pose with a coach. And so I think that's a missed opportunity for a lot of people. And I actually don't know if Elaine poses with a coach besides just her own coach. But I would just say the fluidity, and just small details of the posing, just so it doesn't look quite as rigid is not the word, because her body isn't rigid. I would say it's more of like the confidence issue. Like, I don't know exactly how to explain. It's just like you can tell when someone's on stage. You're watching Sydney Gillen and you just know she knows she's that girl. I feel like there's people on stage that you can tell that they are thinking about what they are posing. And I think that's one area of improvement, obviously, besides, like I said, what I already said about her physique. Routine. I really like this routine. Again, I have seen Elaine compete at this point millions of times, right? This is definitely her best routine that she's put on stage. Now, I feel like, again, I saw her at Adela. So just like we've talked about when we talked about Anya and when we talked, we've talked about a lot of these other IFBB pros, where we've seen them compete before, so we already have an expectation. I saw this routine at Adela. So if I had not seen this routine at Adela, I would say this was the best routine. However, I did see it at Adela, and so I noticed things, right? Um, in general, what I noticed from this routine was the energy was on, and I loved that. I think that was one thing that Elaine was working on. It's just like the performance aspect of her routine, like performing it with confidence, and I think she did a great job of that. But I do think that it felt a little chaotic, like a little bit out of control. Like a little bit sloppy as far as like I'm just trying to look like I'm having fun, and so it was less precise than I know that she meant for it to be, because again, I have already seen this routine performed on stage and I know what she wanted it to look like. Um there were a few, same thing I said with Megan, a lot of the skills that were supposed to leave the floor just I think just need work. There were two straddle jumps. There was like a back, I don't know what they call any of these skills. We don't have these skills in cheerleading. A C jump, is that what it's called? Both of those skills just like were they just lacked like big power. So they were a little bit less than impressive. But in general, I think she had a ton of variety of skills, a ton of difficulty in a lot of her skills. So I feel like again, this was I think a very clear win for her in routine, which is great for her because again, I've mentioned this before, in fitness, it is hard to win, nearly impossible to win if you can't win routine. And Elaine has gotten very, very close several times, but she's never quite snagged the win in routine. And I feel like this routine, when I watched it, I was like, okay, she finally won routine. So anyway, great job, Megan and Elaine. Elaine went on to compete at Universe. Megan, I don't know where we will see you next. I hope we see you soon. So I will move on to Universe. Okay, so moving on to NPC Universe, same thing. There were 5 competitors this time. So I'm just going to move from 5th to 1st. So in 5th place was Dorian. I think it's Dorian. I don't know if it's Dorian or Dorian. Let me know. So she got 5th, but she did get 4th in prejudging. Pretty good package. I mean, her conditioning was pretty good, but she definitely was, she's one of the smaller competitors in this lineup. I would say like in her front shot, her shoulders looked pretty good, maybe a little bit lopsided. So I would just work on that. That could be a posing issue. That could be, when I don't get adjustments often enough, that happens with my shoulder. So that's the first thing, to be honest, that I noticed was just like it wasn't symmetrical side to side. And I don't know, in the suit, I don't know if that suit style is helping. Again, especially because the shoulders are already lopsided in this particular shot. I just don't know if asymmetrical bottoms make sense in a division where symmetry is the goal. But again, conditioning was pretty good. Honestly, one of the best in the lineup, I think. Her back shot looked pretty good, but we've mentioned this before, and it just is what it is in a women's division. Just the bottom half of her back shot, the legs, there wasn't really a lot of separation between the glutes and the hamstrings. And then again, the lack of symmetry in the back and in the back pose. So that's just an area of improvement for her. As far as routines go, to be honest, you guys, I really liked her routine. I was surprised that it ranked so low. However, I will say it had a strong start. And then, so she had I think 2 songs. So the first song, I think, was so good. Her skills were good. The connectivity of them was good. The execution of them was good. The musicality was really good. But then I think when the music switched, and I understand why you would want to have the music switch, because we've talked so much about like having different energy changes and this and that. We've talked about that. I just don't know if that matched her and made sense for this particular routine. Because the skills and the performance in that part of the routine to me was a decrease. It was a lot more faster pace, which is great, but then it got a little bit sloppy and it felt a little bit it just didn't feel as sincere as the first part of the routine. And like I said, I just feel like there was a missed opportunity, especially just because the first half was really strong. Like even when I just rewatched these to do this review, I was like, she really wasn't in the, like I was like confused again. And then I continued to watch the routine, obviously, and then I was like, oh, this is why. So I just think like having a little bit a stronger second half to match the first half. And I think she starts winning routine round honestly pretty quickly. Again, it was a good variety of skills. I think you can tell she comes from a dancer background, so she's a great performer. But I think just the back half of it just for me felt a little bit. It just didn't feel the same connection. And like I said, a lot of the skills got a little bit sloppy, flex feet, and things that weren't really present in the first half. So that's where I would say is an area of improvement for her. So, okay, so next up is Sarah. So Sarah Davies got fourth place. So in the prejudging round, Sarah actually won prejudging. As soon as she came out, you're like, oh man, this chick is stacked. And she had a great shape. She has a very small waist, big upper body, big shoulders, big legs, like great muscularity. I think I saw on her Instagram that she was a power lifter or a weightlifter or something that builds a lot of muscle, and you can tell when you look at her. I would say her suit is giving a little hip hugger. The suit, bring that thing up, bring it all the way up in there to the smallest part of your waist. That's going to make the waist look even smaller. But I mean, honestly, her waist is already looking very small. And I think by looking at this picture, I feel like she does have a small waist, but it's just accentuated by how muscular the rest of her body is as well. I think obviously she needs to work on her conditioning. But in this lineup, her muscularity and her shape, I think were just so far above everybody else that she didn't need the conditioning in this lineup. So she got first in prejudging. She got fifth in routine round. Now, when I watched her routine, I think that I could tell almost immediately that this was her probably one of her first fitness shows. The skills that she performed were good, pretty clean. Like she didn't really look like she was struggling to execute anything. I think she looked like she was having fun. She looked confident, but I think you can tell the difference in choreography and composition. Even the costume was, very basic, which there's nothing wrong with basic, but I remember when I was an amateur at like my second fitness show, that was one of my pieces of feedback. They're like, before you go to Universe, you need to do something more exciting with this costume. So I just think it felt like a very new fitness competitor. So I would just say, honestly, if you're gonna, continue in fitness, I hope you love fitness, Sarah. I would say get some eyes on your routine, get some help with the choreography, just so it can be put together, more cohesive and commanding manner, so that when people are watching it, they're not like, has this person gotten help with this routine? And I don't mean that to sound like mean or anything. I just know, like, I used to do my own choreography as an amateur, and then I got choreography one time with Whitney Jones, and it completely changed the way that I understood how fitness routines are put together. And even after watching so many routines and then putting together a routine that I thought looked like that, when I actually got a routine put together by Whitney Jones, one of the best in our division to ever do it, then I started seeing so many different things. And so that's what I would just say is, like, get choreography at least once, get your routine consulted at least once. Allison and I both do it. And if you want to continue to do your choreography, amazing. Like, I love choreography, so I am someone who doesn't want to give away that part of my own process. But at least one time I needed to, so that I could understand how to do it better myself. So moving on, in third place, we have Anna Wright. So Anna, the shape is shaping. Okay? You guys, Anna's my client, so I'm gonna make her sound like she's my favorite because she is my favorite. Incredible shape. The best shape on the stage, I think, as far as tiny waist, like V-taper, all of those things. Anna needs to bring better conditioning. We're working on it, okay? Anna needs to bring better conditioning to the stage and just more size. Anna's a small, petite girly. She used to compete in bikini, and there are a lot of girls who go from bikini to fitness, but fitness is judged like figure, which means it's judged on the figure criteria, which means a lot of girls that go from bikini to fitness need to build more muscle. So again, the shape is great. The back looked good, but just like I said with Dorian, there you can tell there was a little bit of asymmetry, especially in the back pose. You can see it, and then just the back side of the glutes and hams needs to come in a little bit better. And then I said this also with Elaine at Junior Nats. I think just generally practicing posing, getting eyes on the posing so that it accentuates, because I obviously, like I said, I am Anna's coach, so I also have a little bit different insight on her. Everybody else, I see their stage shots and that is what I assume that they look like. That is all that I have of them. Anna, I see her check-ins, I see her gym photos, so I know that her shoulders have looked bigger than this during our prep. I know that, like, so for me, I'm also saying like, yeah, this is also a posing issue, because I've seen you pose with more round shoulders. So that's just why I know that I can give her a little bit more critical feedback, because I know exactly what these things are caused by. Whereas like somebody else, I'm just like, hey, you need bigger shoulders, when maybe they don't actually need bigger shoulders. Maybe they just need to pose their shoulders better, but I don't know that. I just know their pictures look like they need bigger shoulders. So that's what I'm saying, is when I look at Anna and I see her shoulders, I know that's a posing issue because I've seen her shoulders look bigger, right? So anyway, Anna, practice your posing. And then just continue to come in tighter, to continue to build more muscles. I think she needs to especially work on the legs and always the shoulders. Her back shot, I think, like, her actual back is her strongest, like, part of her body. So legs, I heard on Sydney Gillen's podcast, she said figure girls should not have a thigh gap. And I never forgot it. When she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I need bigger legs. Anyway, that's what I noticed in this photo, is a thigh gap. So we got to close that, Anna. And of course, like I said, I can talk to and about her a little bit more candidly because I am her coach. Routine wise, I felt like this was one of the better composed routines, I'll say, out of the lineup. So she did get third, so it was right in the middle of the pack. But I just think of, when Allison was talking about Chrissy at Adela, she was like, there's not many routines that I feel like could go straight from the national stage to the pro stage. And not that I think that this exact routine could go from the national stage to the pro stage. However, I do feel like this was one of the routines that I felt like if I had that choreography given to me, I could make some skill changes and upgrades, and it would be good enough for the pro stage, right? So I do know that Jacqueline Baker does her routine, so that makes a lot of sense. I think that Jacqueline also does Megan Cassidy's from Junior Nuts. I'm not sure. I just see what I see on Instagram. But what the feedback that I would give and have given to Anna is just a little bit of the connections. It looks like it's choreographed. Some of it looks like it's choreographed to connect, but the execution doesn't connect. It feels very tentative, versus like performing. Someone said like performing to the back of the room. It felt very practice room. I'm doing it, but I'm kind of walking through some of this choreography things. There wasn't like start this skill, finish this skill all the way to the exclamation point on the end of this skill and then start the next skill. It was kind of like there was like between some of those transitions, there was a little bit of waiting period where it was like, okay, the music's, I'm done with this skill, but the music for my next skill, like it's not time for my next skill yet. So I'm just gonna kind of flow, and now it's time for this skill. So that's what I would work on, because I think when you're watching a routine and you have so many of those little gaps, even though I do think she had some of the stronger skills, she had the press handstand, and she had pretty good push flies, and she had tumbling, and she had a good combination of skills. I just think that there was too many times where we were like, what's next? Okay, there it is. What's next? Okay, there it is. So just keeping the crowd's attention and making them not wonder what's going to happen next. She got third in both rounds. I think I said that. Moving on, second place, we have Claire Harmon. So Claire got fifth in prejudging. In general, Claire, you need some bigger shoulders, baby girl, and just better conditioning as usual. You guys, there's never going to be a show recap that we don't say better conditioning. Honestly, even the Olympia, we're going to say better conditioning. So just better conditioning, and she's she's not quite lean enough in this photo for me to really tell, but I would say she's looking like she's bottom heavy, and I don't mean that in the mean way. I mean that in the same way that I said it about myself. I happen to know that Claire came from cheerleading, came from a very high level program. Go Eagles, Moorhead, best in the nation. And I always called my own legs tumbler's legs, strong legs. Okay. I have worked very hard to not be bottom heavy, but I'm just saying that you can tell she comes from a sport that uses her legs a lot. And so she needs to build up the upper body, needs to build the lats, needs to build the shoulders just to even it out. Especially because she doesn't necessarily have the most narrow waist from the front. Now, honestly, her side shot's pretty snatched. She has a small waist this way. Like again, from the side, she has a small waist, which is why I love this transition shot on her. But just when it comes to the V taper, like when you look at the back shot, which is what I feel like from the back, you can tell everybody's real shape. It's just not super duper wide, but again, just more time on stage, building, dieting, etc., etc. And I think she will get there. She just needs some more time as far as that goes. Routine. She got second place in routine. Her routine was so powerful. I loved the emotion put into the choreography of this routine. It was like a military theme tribute to, I think, her late dad. It was one of those routines where you watch it and you're just like, wow, like suck the air out of the room. I think the very first skills like connection combination was really good. But what I will say is, even though I loved the concept of this routine, I feel like it needed to have more athleticism. The push-ups were not, they weren't full depth push-ups. Like there was another, just like I talked about with Elaine's junior Nats routine, where she did like the C jump. She did one of those, I don't know what any of these skills are called, you guys, where you jump, one leg is straight and the other leg like kicks back toward your head. She did one of those, and there wasn't really like a big separation. It didn't look very easy, and it didn't look very powerful, like I've mentioned with the other couple of routines that did skills like that. So for me personally, I would say she just needs to hammer the execution and probably just the endurance of her skills, because again, with this particular routine, I think it was, like I said, put together well, but the skills, like when you look at the lineup of skills, I personally did not think this was going to be the second place routine just based on that alone, right? Um, I think when it comes down to concept and, which routine overall was put together the best and which routine was better on paper, I think it was maybe, in that, I think that's why it ranked higher. But for me personally, when it comes to athleticism, now she's a pro. So you got to think of someone like Abby Bolton, who's going to be flying off the floor. Michelle Gales, like, now we're having to compete against pros, and push-ups that look like it's hard for you to do a push-up. That's gonna, the emotion is not gonna be enough to carry you through on that. So that is my feedback for you, Claire. Like, you are a pro. Congratulations. You are a pro. But the thing about that is now you have to compete as a pro. And so just looking at a pro debut, I don't know if you're doing that soon or if you're taking some time off. But that's where what I would work on in this routine is getting like a little bit more difficulty, at least somewhere in this routine. And then on the skills that you're doing, just hammer the execution, make sure they look strong, make sure they look powerful, make sure they look easy. And then we come back to our winner for the second show in a row, Elaine Tai. Elaine got second in prejudging. Conditioning was much better at this show than it was at Junior Nats. And you can tell, I feel like you can kind of tell, like, in the shoulders. The back pose still looks a little bit bent over to me. So like I said, from Junior Nats, just practicing the posing and getting eyes on the posing and fixing small things like that. I actually already told Elaine this, but I'm going to say this on the podcast because I also told this to Anna the night before she competed. And I actually said it about Sarah. The hip hugger. Y'all start wearing your suits higher. I want you to think about, we're not even talking about Elaine right now. Let's think about fashion. The hip huggers made all of our waists look wide. People wear high waists. Why? Because it makes your waist look small. So you should be thinking about your suits being high waist. It's a lot like the suit should almost be up to the belly button, right? Like, your belly button for most people is only right below the smallest part of your waist. And so when we're talking about the way the suit should fit, it should be getting up in there so that you have the smallest part of your waist, and then your suit continues that V. Right now, like on Elaine, it's like the smallest part of your waist, and then your waist starts to come out, and then your suit cuts in, right? So that is what I would say on that. Obviously, that's not a physique feedback, but that's something you can change almost immediately to make your physique look better. I think competing as a pro, I think that Elaine already has the goods to stand up in a pro lineup. Maybe she's not going to win a prejudging round, but I think that she is gonna make a name for herself, I think, as a pro. Routine. We already talked about the routine from Junior Nats. I do know that she changed those things when I said, hey, those straddle jumps were lacking some excitement and power. She changed them. She took them out. So she got her feedback from Junior Nats, and along with her coach, she's coached by Jody Bohm. They said, okay, these are the things that did not look great in this routine. Let's fix them. And so she fixed those things. I think she felt a lot better coming into this show, as far as just like her confidence level, because she just won the week before. So I think that also showed in her performance, where she was performing, she was having fun, but it felt a little bit more composed and calm versus Junior Nats, where it was just like, oh my gosh, I just like want to show you guys how much energy I have and how much of a good performer I am. Whereas at Universe, it was like, I'm a good performer, and I know that I'm a good performer, so I'm not going to overdo it, and I'm going to execute. And I feel like this was a very clear first place for Elaine, which, again, Elaine is a friend of mine, but even before we were friends, I've watched her compete over and over and over again. And this is a major, major improvement for her from when I first started seeing her compete. So very happy for her and proud to see her win this show. Like I said, as far as it goes to competing as a pro, I think just fine tuning the execution still. And then just, finding her stride as far as difficulty of some skills. I think she has a lot of unique skills, but I don't know that there's any skills in her routine that are wow factors yet. So that's what I would work on, is find at least one thing. And I mentioned that with maybe Chrissy. Find one thing that you do that's going to be like, oh wow, she has a lot of good holds, hand balancing, good show of flexibility, but I do think it needs a little bit more punch. Maybe we've talked about this before. It's just like maybe some change in tempo or change in energy or change in style, because it was good, but it also did feel like it was just like good. It was up here, but it kind of just felt like that versus a little bit more drama. So anyway, great job, Elaine. Now I do want to close this with this. It's a lot to do by yourself, you guys. I do want to close with this. I want y'all to really, especially if you're an amateur watching this, but honestly, even the pros, the scorecard, you guys, I've talked about this. I talked about it on my own vlog, but I think it's so important to remind everybody, again, just to look at the scorecards, just specifically Claire and Sarah. Claire was last place in prejudging, and she snagged a pro card at this show. Sarah was first place in prejudging, and she walked away without a pro card. And so, yes, your physique matters, especially if you are trying to turn pro, because once you turn pro, your physique matters even more, right? And the physiques are even better. However, routine is king. Claire snagged a pro card because she delivered a top 2 routine, despite being last place in prejudging. Sarah was dead center in prejudging and walked away without a pro card because her routine it couldn't stand up to those top 2, right? And so I think it's a good reminder that yes, your physique matters. Yes, focus on your physique. But ultimately in fitness, 2/3 of our scorecard is your routine. So it's so important to focus on your skills, to prioritize your skills, to prioritize your routine performance, your routine recovery, your safety, and to get help, right? I already mentioned, get posing coaches, get someone, get eyes on your routine. And this wasn't gonna turn into a plug, but it is gonna turn into a plug. Allison and I both do routine consulting. I do routine choreography as well. But it doesn't have to be us. It could be anybody. Get eyes on your routines, especially if you are trying to compete at the national level, especially even if you are a pro. Lots of pros do their own routine and they only get eyes on it from their friends and their mom who's like, you're amazing. And they're not winning routine rounds, right? So anyway, that's that. I'm losing my voice. I did not need to be doing a solo podcast today. But these shows were so long ago, so I wanted to get it up. So once again, congratulations to Elaine Tai, now a 2-time national champion and now an IFBB fitness pro, maybe doing a pro debut. And also congratulations to Claire, 2nd place at NPC Universe, also IFBB fitness pro. So we will see you on the next episode. I believe our next show is the Canada Natural Pro. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe to this channel. And if you are someone who is interested in competing in fitness, please do not be afraid to hit up, like I said, me or Allison for coaching or just for questions if you want to ask. I love taking a baby underneath my wings. So anyway, that's all. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.